Question number 2. In what ways was the working population in Russia different from other countries in Europe before 1917? The answer here, industrial workers. The working population in Russia was different from other countries in Europe before 1917 in the following ways. So it differed there. Many workers had settled in cities permanently, but many had strong links with the villages from which they came and continued to live in the village. They went to the towns to work daily and then returned to their villages in the evening. Workers were a divided social group. Were divided by skill. Division among workers was visible in their dress and manners also. Mental workers, metal workers consider themselves aristocrats among workers as their occupation demanded more training and skill. Women made up 31% of the labor force by 1914, but they were paid less than men. Some workers formed associations of help in times of unemployment or financial hardship. The workers did unite to strike work when they disagreed with these employers about dismissal or about work conditions. Workers got low wages and they had long working hours. They had very few political rights. In short, their life was miserable. Then the agricultural workers, they are the farmers. About 85% of the Russia population earns their living from agriculture, that is by farming. But most of them were landless farmers. They used to work in others' land. Most of the land was owned by the nobility, the crown, and the Orthodox Church. In France, during the French Revolution in Brittany, peasants respected and fought for the landowners, but in Russia, peasants wanted to land on the nobles to be given to them. They refused to pay rent and even murdered landlords. Russian peasants were different from European peasants in another way. They pooled their land together periodically and their commune divided it according to the needs of the individual families. Like industrial workers, the condition of the agricultural workers or farmers was also very miserable because of low wages, doing free labor and paying high rent and revenue. Our third question, why did the Tsarist autocracy collapse in 1917? Answer. The Tsarist autocracy collapsed in 1917 due to the following reasons. First reason is miserable conditions of the workers. The industrial workers in Russia got very low wages. They had very long working hours, sometimes up to 15 hours. A large number of workers were unemployed. The workers demanded higher wages and reduction in working hours because they were working 15 hours a day. But the demands were not met and they became dissatisfied. Second point is here miserable condition of the peasants. Most of the peasants were landless and poor and very poor. Then they also had to do free labor for the landlords. Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. The small farmers who possessed land had to pay high land revenue, leaving very less for them to survive on. The landless farmers demanded that the land of the nobles should be given to them. They wanted a reduction of land revenue. However, their demands were not fulfilled and they too became dissatisfied. These are the following reasons. Russia's defeat in the First World War. Initially, the people rallied around the Tsar Nicholas II. However, Russian army suffered defeat and a large number of soldiers were killed in the war. The Russian population wanted to withdraw from the war, but the Tsar was not willing to do so. This turned to Russian people against him and encouraged them to revolt. Role of philosophers like Karl Marx. Karl Marx put forward the idea that capitalists were responsible for the misery of the workers and that the condition of workers could only improve if the land and the industries were controlled by the society. He inspired the workers to oppose the landlords and the capitalists. The role of the other people also against the policies of the monk named Rasputin. Then our question number 4. Make two lists, one with the main event and the effect of the February Revolution and the other with the main event and the effects of October. First one, Revolution. Write a paragraph on who was involved in each, who were the land leaders and what was the impact of each on Soviet history. Answer, February Revolution. Here we come to 22nd February factory lockout on the right bank took place, that is on February 22nd, and then 25th February Duma was dissolved. On 27th February police headquarters Actually, 27th February, police headquarters ransacked regiments support the workers' formation of the Soviet. 2nd March, so after 28, means 3 days after, the Tsar dedicated his power. The Soviet and Duma leaders formed a provisional government for Russia. The February Revolution had no political parties at its forefront. It was led by the people themselves. Petrograd had brought down the monarchy and thus gained a significant place in Soviet history. Trade unions grew in number. Both men and women workers were involved. There were no particular leaders. The effect was that it brought down the autocratic monarchy. And October Revolution. Here what happened in October Revolution? 16th October, a military revolutionary committee was appointed by Soviet. On 24th October, the uprising against provisional government begins. Military revolutionary committee controls the city by night and ministers surrender. The Bolshevik gained power. The October Revolution was primarily led by Lenin and his subordinate Trotsky and involved the masses who supported these leaders. It marked the beginning of the Lenin's rule over the Soviet, with the Bolsheviks under his guidance. Bolsheviks were the main people involved. Then Vladimir Lenin and Leon Trotsky were the main leaders. The effect was that it brought the Bolshevik to power to form a communist government for the first time in the world. Our fifth question is, what were the main changes brought about the Bolsheviks immediately after the 2nd October Revolution? The answer, The main changes which were brought about by the Bolsheviks immediately after the October revolutions were bank and industries were nationalized, land was declared social property, thereby allowing peasants to seize it from the nobility. In urban areas, houses were sorry, partitioned according to the family requirements. Partition here, according to the family requirement, all aristocratic titles were banned and new uniforms were designed for the army and the officials. New uniforms were introduced for the army and the officials. The famous Soviet that was introduced, that is Bute Onovka. Then the fifth answer is over. The sixth answer. Write a few lines to show what you know about the kulaks or kulaks. It is the Russian term for wealthy peasants who Stalin believed were hoarding grains to gain more profit. By 1927 to 1928, the towns of the Soviet Russia were facing an acute problem of the grain supplies. Kulaks were thought to be the partly responsible for this. Also, to develop modern farms and run them along industrial lines, the party, under the leadership of the Stalin, thought it was necessary to eliminate kulaks. Well-to-do peasants were called kulaks during Stalin's leadership. As food storage continued, Stalin decided to introduce the collectivization program. Under this program, kulaks were removed out. This is land from this well-to-do peasants was forcibly taken and large state-controlled farms were established. This was done to modernize the farming and increase the production. The Duma. During a 1905 revolution, the Tsar allowed the creation of an elected consultative parliament in Russia. This elected consultative parliament in Russia was called Duma. Though the Duma was accepted by the Tsar, they were constantly dismissed by the Tsar and new ones were set up. After the February Revolution, when the monarchy was overthrown, that was, the kingship was removed, Duma leaders and the Soviet leaders formed a provisional government in Russia. Women workers between 1900 and 1930. The other point here, they made up 31% of the factory laborers force by 1914 but were paid almost half and the three-quarters of the wages given to men. However, interestingly, it were the women workers who led the way to strikes during the February Revolution. During the February Revolution in 1917, many women workers led the strikes. The condition of the women workers continued to be grim until the 1930s. Slowly conditions improved and creches were set up in factories for the children of the women workers. The liberals now here. After the French Revolution, people wanted a transformation in the society. Many groups were formed with this intention. One such group was the liberals. They espoused a nation that was tolerant towards all religions, one that would protect individual rights against the government. The liberals wanted a nation with religious tolerance and individual rights, though they wanted an elected parliamentary government. they wanted only men of property to have the right to vote. They were against women voting. Stalin's collectivization program. Now, Stalin believed that collectivization of the agriculture would help in improving grain supplies in Russia. He began collectivization in 1929. All peasants were forced to uh, sorry, cultivate in collective farms, that is, kolkhoz. The bulk of the land and the implements were transferred to the ownership of the collective farms. Many peasants protested such attempts and destroyed livestock to show their anger. Then, collectivization did not bring the desired result in the food supply. Situation turned even worse in subsequent years. So this was the exercise question answers of the history lesson. Second second lesson, that was history. Then I think the exercise question answers of the history, socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution has been completed. Kindly complete the notes and just go through it once. Thank you.